Hi everyone, this is Yona from Eternal Diver. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and hopefully this will be a place where we can share knowledge, share tips, and eventually progress everybody's skill as a diver. Today we're doing some testing of our new dry suit to see how it works in the tropics, having nothing but a wicker suit underneath because it's not that cold, and seeing what modifications we need to make to our weighing and to our dry suit eventually, or even to our side mount harness, which is at the moment set up for wetsuit diving. So if I'm not mistaken, this was in the beginning of the dive. Both tanks had about 200 bar, and we had just switched from a very positively buoyant fin to a negatively buoyant fin to see how that would change our trim. Yeah, and just trying to get a feel of the minimum weight we need so that we're not carrying more than we need. And just seeing what it's like to do an S drill or other skills. Yeah. Considering that we're diving in India, and that you could imagine what is the real use for a dry suit, considering our water temperature is 28 degrees most of the year, it becomes useful if we're doing decompression dives, for 2-3 hours or more in the water, or we're doing multiple dives in the day to depth. And there's times of the year where the water in Pondicherry goes down from, nice 28, 29 to 23, 24. This also opens up the opportunity to go diving in places like the Himalayas or certain lakes or rivers where the water temperature might be a lot colder. The whole idea of removing the tanks is to see what is our trim without the effect of the aluminium cylinders, and to get a bit of an idea of how we want to make adjustments in our trim. Especially that with a dry suit we normally do end up carrying a little bit more weight than with a wetsuit. And for me, this exercise was all about seeing what's the bare minimum weight I need to be comfortable in my dry suit. Since I did a few dives with 8 kilos before, and that was quite heavy and not so comfortable. And here I was able to reduce the weight down to 4 kilos, which meant that when I took off my tanks, I was kind of going up when I was breathing in and going down when I was breathing out, which is perfect, and I still had full mobility in my suit. I'm signaling there that I've got 4 kilos to the camera. As you can see, there's not much extra air in the suit. So I would imagine that if I'm adding thermal insulation, for colder waters, I'll have to add weight accordingly. One of the things I do is every single dry suit dive, I kind of write it down on a separate booklet I have, just to see how much weight I'm wearing and what is the insulation that I have on. Yeah. Now obviously after removing all the tanks, we get to put them back on. This was probably the hardest part, was the fine tune dexterity, mobility with the dry suit. I found that the bolt snaps were actually quite easy because I've got nice big bolt snaps. I always have had. I find it easy. But feeling the bungee was not. I've got woolen gloves inside the dry gloves to really kind of play with the idea of what the mobility is with dry gloves. And it became very difficult to feel the bungee and manipulate the bungee. I found it easier where there was a knot. Also, the entire experience of controlling your buoyancy and manipulating your hoses is very different with a dry suit. As you can see, the long hose manipulation, I almost decided that it was too much of a hassle to put the long hose back in, which is what I would always do in a normal situation. But here I decided to not do it because it was just too painful to try play with the bungees and the dry gloves. And you can see that the hose is going to get stuck around my left shoulder. It's highly advisable whenever you are working with new equipment, or you got yourself a new BCD, a new, in my case, a dry suit, to jump in the pool and do yourself a nice session. If possible, film yourself, because it will permit you to fine tune. You can see I forgot to plug in the dry suit hose at the end of this dive, or after doing the skills. So it's always important to work on your skills and to become comfortable with your equipment. Back on the surface, I'm contemplating in what order I'm going to unkit. My hands are still dry. It's really a strange way to go diving. So, I had full mobility underwater. I could use my harness, the same one as I was using when I dive in a wetsuit. So it's nice, I don't need to readjust that. It's a tight fit. There is not much isolation, so I imagine if I'm going to put more weight, I will need to add some isolation. And I guess I'll take off the dry gloves and switch off the GoPro. Just because, I didn't want to get cold in the pool.